Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer, and welcome to our weekly roundup of competitive Age of Sigmar via our stats machine LLV. Every week we'll be taking tournament information from around the globe and compiling them and giving you some thoughtful punditry on what makes the best Age of Sigmar armies or how you can do better than your faction currently is. Seeing as we're in Age of Sigmar 2, we're going to call this Season 2, and this is our first week, so this is Week 1, November the 5th. This show has been brought to you by everyone who subscribes to the Honest Wargamers Twitch and Patreon. Those guys are paying for free content for everyone in the world, which is pretty nice of them really, so you should buy them all a beer. So first off, a quick overview of the most popular Grand Alliances, and quite obviously it's going to be Order. They have the most sub-factions available, so that makes sense why they are in there. However, Chaos is not too far behind. Order's at 40% of the total armies that you're likely to face, with 27% being Chaos, 21% of those being Death, and Death have the most popular sub-faction in Age of Sigmar currently, that being Legions of Nagash. And finally, Destruction in 12.4%. They haven't had a battle tome in Age of Sigmar 2, they haven't had one in a while, so that's probably why you're seeing them being underrepresented. Now let's look at what factions are appearing in the top 10s in tournaments around the world. As you can see, Legions of Nagash have placed in the top 10 49 times, and now being the most popular and most used faction in competitive events, trumping Stormcast this week because of the Blood and Glory event, where it had a massive 20% attendance. That means statistically at least everyone should have played a Legions of Nagash player once at that event. So it makes sense with their popularity that they've placed in the top 10 the most times, 49 times around the world since the launch of AOS 2. And why is that? Well, the realm spells is a big factor. The ability to have such good casters cast all of those great spells is really useful. However, probably the biggest swing factor has to be the commander ability to be able to regenerate entire units out of gravesites. That plus the healing and some incredibly strong units like Grimghast Reapers and Skeleton Warriors means that Legions of Nagash are the army to beat. However, if you look at the stats, Daughters of KHAINE, who are in second there, are actually a better performing army, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. MAGGOTKIN are also doing well, placing quite high constantly, and STORMCAST have a win rate of about 50%, but as you can see on the chart, they are in there placing in the top 10 quite a few times. Now, a big shout out to the IRONJAWZ players who've placed in the top 10, because their faction, statistically, based on the information you can see, has only got a win rate of 37%. So while it does look like since the launch of Age of Sigmar 2 and the Soul Wars happening, Legions of Nagash are doing better, that isn't what the Daughters of KHAINE stats show us. So the Daughters of KHAINE, more survivable than NURGLE and more killy than IRONJAWZ. If you were going to an Age of Sigmar event, you'd see them about 5% of the time, so that's what 5% of the meta means. However, they have a 72% win rate. If we take the local event recently, Blood and Glory, there were 8 players, 4 of them won 4 games and the other 4 won 3 games. They consistently do incredibly well and have done so over several events, winning several major tournaments. As you can see here on our 5+ win rate chart, 12 times they have won 5 or more games, which is amazing, and is the highest stat, beating Legions of Nagash, who have twice as many armies playing in competitive Age of Sigmar currently. And if you look, they just consistently do well. 3+, 4+, and 5+, just really high numbers. Ways to beat them are to kill the Death Hags if you can, or the Witch Elves if you can, or try not to fight them even though they're fast. There's a tactic out there, but it doesn't look like the Age of Sigmar community yet has got it. Do Legions of Nagash have it? And of course we can't mention Daughters of KHAINE, who this weekend of Blood and Glory did not win 5 games, only won 4, but there were some mirror matches which I think are the cause. But whatever the situation, you're going to have to learn to beat the ladies, because the ladies are out beating you. That's right, straight from the realm of death themselves, the Legions of Nagash have been kicking face in Age of Sigmar and are now the most popular faction to take to a competitive Age of Sigmar event. 13% of the meta, they're now more popular than Stormcast. That's right, it's better to be dead than gold. And they are kicking face in tournaments too, with a 59% win rate since Age of Sigmar 2's launch, and recently the Blood and Glory event, not only winning the event, but coming first, second, and third. Those guys are just loving the realm spells, especially on giant casters like Nagash and Arcan, and of course being able to bring entire units back for a single command point is probably the reason these guys are winning whole tournaments. It's definitely a spooky time to be in Age of Sigmar, so you guys need to learn how to beat these guys. Being the most common army in Age of Sigmar in competitive events at the minute, you would expect Legions of Nagash to have the top stats. However, they do not. 10 times, and Legions of Nagash army has won 5 or more games. However, the Daughters of KHAINE have 12, so they are doing better than the Dead Boys. That's right, but then if you look at all of the stats, they are consistently doing very, very well. 4+ and 3+ wins in there. Win rate is well over 50%. So the big question is, how do you beat this army? And it's a tough question to answer. Realistically, I feel like you've got to shoot the characters so that they can't bring units back or flood the grave sites, but both of those are easier said than done for a list of reasons. However, as we've said, they aren't winning all tournaments. They are doing very well though, so this is something you need to learn to play against and how to beat in the future. Next up, we have the tree people themselves, the Sylvaneth, one of my favourite armies, and they've been doing quite well in Age of Sigmar, even though they've not been particularly well represented. Taking up just 6% of the meta, but with a 56% win rate, Sylvaneth are doing really quite well. However, they are also the boogeyman, which has caused there to be very little shooting ever since the update to Sylvaneth Wildwoods, turning them to Citadel Wildwoods and stopping line of sight and therefore reducing shooting in Age of Sigmar. I feel that that's what's contributed to a lot less shooting and has really helped Legions of Nagash and the Daughters of KHAINE. However, Sylvaneth are always the bridesmaids and never the bride, and while they have gone for 5+ wins 4 times, they more often than not get 3 or 4 wins at a tournament. I don't know what it is that just means Sylvaneth can't bump up a little bit. They have, don't get me wrong. I just think that there's something else there. I know for a fact a lot of Dryads are doing really quite well at the minute, and Alarielle creating 200 points straight off the bat when she's on the board is very useful. Very interesting, the lists that are out there as well. You have Dreadwood Wargroves doing well, you have Harvest Boom Wargroves doing well, and you have Winterleaf Wargroves doing well, and possibly even some Gnarl Roots knocking around. So there's lots of options in the Sylvaneth book, and that is why they're placing so high. Next up, it's the Golden Boys themselves, the Stormcast Eternals. Now, they are the second most popular in Age of Sigmar at the minute, and definitely the starter army for a lot of new players. And that might be what attributes the 50% win rate that they have. Games Workshop's got to be really happy about that stat. You know, the starter army that they push the hardest has just got the most average win rate you can get. However, in this humble commentator's opinion, Stormcast are a really successful army and have all of the tricks to possibly win tournaments constantly. I would attribute the low win rate there to a lot of new players learning and getting into competitive gaming, which is excellent, and you should continue to do so, but I think Stormcast are a massive threat when it comes to competitive Age of Sigmar. And as you can see from our win rate chart, they have won 5 or more games often, and 4 or more games, but more likely than not at 3+ games is what you're going to win at a tournament, which is still very good. That's really good, and you're going to be dead chuffed with that, and you're going to come over halfway on the rankings. Stormcast have got a lot of tricks, they've got a lot of tools, they've got magic, they've got shooting, and they've got great combat. They just lack from bodies on the board, and what we've seen from some of the other armies, they have huge amounts of bodies on the board, whether or not it be Grimghast Reapers, Skeleton Warriors, Witch Elves. There are loads of models to score objectives in Age of Sigmar at the minute, and Stormcast are an elite army and they struggle to do that. However, you can spray them with just Cannon Retributor Gold, so it's well easy, right? Order, order, order. And what are Chaos doing to stop Order from womping all over the Mortal Realms? Well, not much when we look at the stats for Age of Sigmar. However, MAGGOTKIN of NURGLE are making sure Chaos are represented in our top 5, representing about 7% of the meta, and with over a 52% win rate, they have the Stormcast Eternals beat by 2%, which is solid. And while being a very popular army, they don't tend to win 5 or more games very often. However, 3+ games or 4+ games, they are doing great, which makes sense as this is one of the most successful armies in Age of Sigmar at the minute for gaming. There's such a variety of ways to build a MAGGOTKIN and NURGLE army. They have a lot of key units. However, output, I would say, is the main issue, and realistically, as we talked about before, being able to get at those characters both Legions of Nagash and the Daughters of KHAINE armies have is sometimes where I think they may struggle. However, they're doing very, very well. They're in the top 5. They're doing great, so that's good for Chaos. Chaos are up there along with Death and Order. So that's a pretty fair mix, although Order clearly are doing fantastic at the top there, but Death are giving them a run for their money. However, big question, what is happening with Destruction? So here we are looking at a cool stat, but a very sad fact. IRONJAWZ rock about 5% of the meta in Age Sigmar currently, but they are only getting a 37% win rate. What is going on with the big green boys? Age Sigmar, it could be said currently, it's a very, very choppy and fighty meta at the minute. There are lots of armies that can fight well, and all of them can fight better than IRONJAWZ, unfortunately. Grimghast Reapers can beat up IRONJAWZ. Daughters of KHAINE can beat up IRONJAWZ. And IRONJAWZ really do struggle to beat up Plague Bearers. And whenever those IRONJAWZ keep going into those spooky SYLVANETH wildwoods, very few of them keep coming back outside. But that's not to say that the crumping and smashing for the big green boys is out and out. We might just see a bunch of new or enthusiastic players playing with IRONJAWZ because they are one of the most fun armies to play and one of the most fun player bases you can find in Age of Sigmar. If you have any answers or thoughts on how IRONJAWZ could do better, you should definitely leave them in the comments below. And if you're one of the IRONJAWZ players out there, you need to be crumping some heads, boys, because you need to bring these stats up. If we look at the 5+ win rate chart, we actually had to amend it just so you could see how they've done, because no IRONJAWZ players have ever won 5 or more games. They've won 4 or more a little bit, but as you can see, 2 or more tends to be where IRONJAWZ sit currently. However, with the Moon Clan Battle Tome on the horizon, are we going to see a destruction get a rise to prominence? Let's hope so. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone watching and listening. And don't forget, this has been sponsored by everyone on Patreon and Twitch for the Honest Wargamer. You can see us do a weekly show on our Twitch channel, and you can listen to it as a podcast, or you can watch us on YouTube or Facebook. Thanks very much, and don't forget, every army is a winning army if you stop being a coward about it.